Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 588, written by SlowMotionOcean, The Twisted Grocery Store. I've been doing Walmart pickup since the pandemic started. Well, last week I went back to my old grocery store and was rung up at Register 1. This is the one by the cooler in front where they keep the convenience items, milk, energy drinks, coffee, and whatnot. I was glad to see my old friend Fat was there. Fat is a big guy who loves food and always talks to me about my purchases. This has been going on for several years. He kinda looks like a Fat Albert, and that day he was wearing an N95 respirator. In fact, all the employees were wearing N95 respirators, so I figured it must be a store policy. I was prepared for the letdown of him not remembering me after so much time had passed, but to my surprise, he did the old stop and chatted with me after ringing me up, and he remembered who I was. Fast forward to today. I went back in for some desserts from the bakery and had a question about the price. I saw Fat standing there at Register 1, his usual register, staring oddly at the wall. The way he was spaced out almost stopped me, but I thought, hey, he does work here after all. So I walked up to him, and he didn't react to me at all until I started speaking. I asked my question and he answered, but then he told me I couldn't get the discount without a club card. His tone of voice was off, condescending. As I walked away, I realized two things. He had no idea who I was, and neither he nor any of the other employees were wearing masks. In fact, not one single person in the entire store had on a mask. No one in the parking lot did either. This is the same place I experienced my first glitch, where one employee disappeared and was replaced by a different one while I was looking directly at him, like a jump cut in a movie. The same store, same checkout lane, Register 1. Case notes, file number 588. I have noticed that some places in this world occupy energy sources. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, or rather, these are the effects they have on people. Has anyone else noticed this too? An example, there's a subway nearby here that I'll walk into and instantly just feel depressed, like the price to enter the premises is my soul carrying an additional burden or weight. And the employees there feel or act the same way. That's the best way I can describe it. And the moment I leave the area, the weight vanishes like it never existed. I think your grocery store occupies one of these energy pockets. The effect it has can be wild and random, although I think the dropping of mass was more coincidence, perhaps just store policy changing from one day to the next. The employee you knew whose attitude was off, who didn't recognize you, maybe this force that's constantly around him finally fractured his soul. I've seen it happen to people, although never happened to me, thankfully. I have always been annoyingly upbeat. The other glitch you mentioned though, where an employee is switched out in an instant, like a jump cut. That's completely baffling. I wonder if it could be related to my energy pocket hypothesis. Creepy file number 15, written by Revolutionary Sun 5533, a man with black eyes. When I was 12, I saw a black-eyed person. Not just dark eyes, but the kind of pitch black you see in horror movies where the entire eye is black, like in Supernatural. This was in 1995, before colored contacts were widely available, and I think they were like hundreds of dollars. So I've always found that explanation unlikely. It wasn't Halloween or anything. So I'm at a huge water park in my city in the wave pool. My friend and I were on a double inner tube just splashing around when we ended up in the middle of the giant pool, bumping into other tubers. I look up and a few feet away is this guy. He's about 25 and he's staring at me. Not just staring, but staring into my eyes, into my soul. It was a creepy stare, but not sexual or anything like that. It was just too intense. I couldn't look away for what felt like a long time. It felt like he knew what I was thinking. Definitely felt predatory in an animalistic way. I swear he had a small smirk on his face too. After what was probably only a few seconds, but felt much longer, I looked away and that was that. This is the interesting part, I think. Back then, I never talked about it or looked it up. The internet was new, and I don't think I even had an email at that point. I don't think I told my friend or my parents. About 15 years later, I'm sitting at work and I remember this incident, so I decided to look it up online. I checked eye diseases, and the only one that could be related to black eyes was saying that people afflicted by it generally couldn't be in the sun as it is too painful. I saw the black-eyed guy on a sunny day at a water park, so that was unlikely. I then found a site about black-eyed kids, but that sounded too made up. I did find a handful of similar stories though. I guess I'll never know for sure, but it sticks out as one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. Bonus file, written by Temporary Ask 7225. I was 1 inch away from pulverizing his head on the white line. In the summer of 2016, I attended a graduation party in my hometown. At around 10 p.m., I decided to say my goodbyes and head down the mountain by myself. As I reached the summit of the mountain, my headlights illuminated a horrific scene to my right. A wrecked red sedan with the front window shattered and a man laying in front of the car. I steered quickly out of the way since his head was nearly on the white of my lane. A few feet away from the scene, I pulled off into the truck lane, put my hazards on, and stared in shock in my rearview mirror. A few seconds later, I see car lights coming my way, slowing down at the scene. I tried to wave them down, but it's dark, secluded, and I'm in shock. It was unsuccessful. They slowed down, looked at the scene, and hit the gas full speed down the mountain. After they passed me, my anxiety kicked in and I too fled the scene at full speed. I called my then boyfriend and didn't tell him what I saw. I needed to distract myself. About 8 minutes later, when I arrived home, I wake up my parents and waste no time getting everyone in the car to drive me up to the summit. In the meantime, we called the police. I didn't do this earlier because I was fresh out of high school and didn't know if I would have to stay at the scene, if I would be questioned, in trouble for being out so late and so young. In a nutshell, I panicked. By the time my parents and I make it back to the summit, there is nothing there. It was less than 20 minutes. I got out and shocked, looked for broken glass from the windshield and any other signs that someone had been hurt there. Nothing. Now I'm freaking out because I look as if I'm hallucinating all of this. My parents called the police again, and we left as the emergency services arrived. I've talked to a few people from my hometown, and they told me they wouldn't be surprised if I saw something paranormal because of all the accidents that have happened there. I personally know a few people who have died driving on that road. The only other explanation I could think of was that it was some elaborate stage accident to lure someone out of their car. But the windshield was broken. His head was by the white line. If he wasn't already dead, he was placing himself in serious danger. The airbags were deployed and the car was smashed by a telephone pole. How could someone stage that and be gone in less than 20 minutes? Even if the wreck did just happen, how would that man have been able to walk away from the scene and not leave his car or any other evidence behind? I'm 95% sure I saw something supernatural. But I wanted to know your thoughts. Is it possible that I saw a fatal accident on its anniversary? This experience has never left me, and occasionally I still search for accident records at this spot, just hoping for an explanation. Bonus file written by Willie P. 2022. The skeleton with brown bones and ripped jeans. I had to have been only about 5 or 6, but I still think about it almost every other night. I'm 18 now. It was me, my mom, and my sister all sharing a bed together. We had all passed out, but in the middle of the night, my mom left the bed because who would want to share a bed with 2 children? This was a regular thing for her to do. At about 7 in the morning, while the whole house was still asleep, I opened my eyes to realize that I was all the way on the opposite side of the bed from where I fell asleep. I was up against my sister on the edge of this king-size bed. I went to roll over to get away from my sister when I locked eyes with it. He was sitting crisscrossed. He had brown bones, ripped jean shorts, and eyes in his skull. It was a skeleton. He was sitting right next to me, staring at me. I froze. The only thing I thought to myself to do was to close my eyes and roll back over. I couldn't believe what I saw until about 10 seconds later, when I could feel it crawling off the bed. So I stayed frozen. I stayed frozen for about an hour until I could hear my mom's voice from the other room. As soon as I heard her, I screamed because I knew she would immediately come and check on me. Then I knew I would be safe. After she came into the room, I explained everything to her. I told her she has to believe me. I really saw it. Since then, I haven't had any incidents remotely close to that. I've also told the story to a good amount of people. Most people say they believe me, but you can tell they don't.